ॐ विश्वं दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यन्निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिरिवोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यः साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये बीजस्यान्तरिवाङ्कुरो जगदिदं प्राङ्निर्विकल्पं पुनः मायाकल्पितदेशकालकलना वैचित्रचित्रीकृतं मायावीव विजृम्भयत्यपि महायोगी वयस्वेच्छया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ Verse 192 जगन्मिथ्यात्ववत् स्वात्मा सङ्गत्वस्य समीक्षणात् कस्य कामायेति वचः भोक्तृभावविवक्षया. So with verse 191 Vidyaranya has concluded the discussion on a part of the mantra, Brihadaranyaka mantra, that is Kimichan, etc. This is the mantra 4.4.12 is under the discussion. The whole chapter, 7th chapter, is on discussion of one mantra. Atmanam chet vijaniyat ayamasmiti purushah kimichan kasya kamaya shariram anusanjvaret. So find that this is the mantra under the discussion, the whole chapter, and in that we are discussing this one part, Kimichan. From verse number 135 to 191 is the discussion on this Kimichan part. And here, of course, in this, this is the part where Vidyaranya negates all desires of a jnani, and point out that by negating all the desires, Upanishad negates all objects of desire. So, bhogya abhavat, bhogya ichha abhavah, bhogya abhavat, bhogya ichha abhavah. Previously, person desired objects because he misunderstood the objects as real. Objects are perceived all right, but they are unreal. So, therefore, Jnani does not desire these unreal mithya objects. Vidyaranya makes a incidental point that Jnani cannot have a desire born out of ignorance. Ajnana janita, vasanas, kamaha, let us say. That's ajnana janya kamaha na bhaveyu. So, basically, these desires based on the ignorance won't be there, because Jnani means he does not have ignorance. But prarabdha kamaha, prarabdha janya kamaha, that we discussed before few classes. Prarabdha janya kamaha bhaveyuhu. So he will have a desires based on his prarabdha. Prarabdha vasana. So Upanishad does not mention that we have to this part is not mentioned by the Upanishad, but we understand that. So Vidyaranya says vasana janya kamaha, vasana janya ichhaha, they are as good as no desires, because they don't have a capacity to bind. And Vidyaranya gave an example of a roasted seed. So the desires present in the mind of the jnanis, they are like a roasted seeds. And the roasted seed is as good as no seed, because from the sprouting angle, it doesn't sprout. Same way here also, this desires present in the mind of a jnani, definitely, since it cannot bind him, it doesn't create further samsara for this jnani. So therefore Upanishad doesn't want to count those desires. That's how it says kimichan. Desiring what? And Kim here stands for Akshepa. Akshepa stands for negation. And therefore, Upanishad negates all these desires. Means Upanishad negates the desires based on Ajnanam. Binding desires are not present. Vasanajanya, Prarabdha Vasanajanya desires are very much there. So this part of discussion is over. From this mantra, Kimichan part discussion is over. And so, Bhogya Prapancha Nishedha, we can say. Now from verse 192, Kasya Kamaya discussion is there. From 192 to 220, almost 31 verses, is a discussion on the expression of a Brihadaranyaka Upanishad mantra 4412. Kasya Kamaya. Kimichan Kasya Kamaya Shariram Anusanjvaret. So Kasya Kamaya portion is under discussion. What is the meaning of this Kasya Kamaya? Well, for whose enjoyment should Jnani desire sense objects? Or for which enjoyer's enjoyment Jnani desires sense objects? So this appears to be a question, but it is again Akshepa. So here Kasya does not stand for real question. That's a Akshepa means it is negation. Negation is answer. So there is no enjoyer to enjoy the sense objects. In Sanskritam we call enjoyer experiencer as a bhokta. So Upanishad negates enjoyer. Previous portion Kimichan negates bhogya prapancha nisheda, bhogya nisheda, telling them they are mithya, etc. And now bhoktru nisheda, the very enjoyer or experience also is not there of the sense object. So neither object of bhoga, neither subject of bhoga. Both really don't exist. So bhoktru nisheda, we can call it a ahankara nisheda also. The ahankara only serves as a karta bhokta. And what is ahankara? Well, we have seen all this. Definition of ahankara is this threefold sharira plus chidabhasa. So it's a mixture. Threefold sharira, we can take it as a reflecting medium. And the chidabhasa is a reflecting consciousness. Together is ahankara. And both are mithya. All the three shariras are mithya, and definitely chidabhasa also is a mithya, and therefore ahankara is mithya, means bhokta is mithya. And this Shariratraya Pratibimba Chaitanyam, or well, we call it as a Vishwam, we call it as a Vishwa, we call it Taijasa, we call it Prajna, and they are negated. In Mandukya, it's very nicely negated in 7th mantra. Na antah prajnam negates the Taijasa. Na bahish prajnam negates the Vishwa, the waker. Na prajnanaghanam negates the very deep sleeper, Prajna Nisheda. So what is left out is a Turiya. So anyway, so this is ahankara mithyatvam has been, the bhoktrutva mithyatvam has been shown by Kasya Kamaya. So it says here in verse 192, Jagan mithyatvavat, just as Jagan mithyatva is conveyed indirectly by the expression kimichan, in the same way. So what stands for this similarity. So Jaganma mithyatvavat swatma asangatva samikshanat. Well, bhoktru abhava vivakshaya, first let us take that. So with intention of negating bhoktru prapancha also, or bhokta, or all multitudes of ahankara, vachaha means an expression of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Kasya Kamaya iti, this expression, for Kasya Kamaya, for which enjoyment, for enjoyment of which enjoyer, Jnani desires, etc. That part has been discussed. So here, bhoktru abhava vivaksha. So with intention of negating the bhokta, this Kasya Kamaya is there, that akshepa is there. If the akshepa is for negation. So how bhokta is negated? Well, Vidyaranya says Atma asangatva samikshanat. Asanga status of oneself. Samikshanat means a clear understanding. Samyak ikshanam. So because of the clear understanding of this Atma Asangatva, Asanga status of oneself, definitely Bhokta is negated. Once you understand you are Asanga, then Bhoktrutva cannot remain. By knowing I am Asanga, how Bhokta is negated? Well, because logic is this: to enjoy Bhokta status, he should have a connection. With what? With Bhogya Prapancha. So, like a husband's status is possible only with a connection to a wife. Same way, once I know I am Asanga, then connection with Bhogya Prapancha definitely goes away, and therefore, because it is Mithya, the very Bhokta itself is Mithya. So, connection with the Bhogya Prapancha goes away. So, earlier we said connection with the Bhogya Prapancha goes away because of Mithyatvam. Now we say connection with the Bhogya Prapancha goes away because Atma is Asanga. That's the difference. Connection with the Bhogya Prapancha goes away. Two reasons. Connection with the Bhogya Prapancha goes away because the Bhogya Prapancha itself is a Mithya. Therefore, there cannot be a connection with the Mithya thing. And now connection with the Bhogya Prapancha goes away, we are saying again on the basis that I am Asanga. And therefore, I cannot have a connection with the Bhogya Prapancha. And therefore, Bhokta becomes Mithya. Bhokta has a Sangha connection with the Bhogya Prapancha. But see, if I am Asanga, then there is no connection with the Bhogya Prapancha. And therefore, Bhoktrutvam is Mithya. So, they give an example that how can a space has any connection with anything. So, I can't have a connection with the Bhogya Prapancha, and therefore I can't be called Bhokta. And therefore, my Bhoktrutva status is, I am Bhokta is a misconception. Like just as if a false snake is superimposed upon a rope, same way Bhoktrutvam is superimposed upon the self, and all self is taken as a Bhokta. Either way you can say. Either self is taken as a Bhokta or Bhoktrutvam is definitely superimposed upon the Atma. And because of that, that Abhimana is there, I am Bhokta, etc. Then, but I am basically Asanga, no connection with the Bhoktrutvam. Therefore, Bhoktrutvam is falsified. And that is indicated by mantra itself, part of the mantra, Brihadaranyaka mantra. Which part? Kasya kamaya. Right? And therefore, for enjoyment of which enjoyer Jnani desires, means there is no enjoyer. Upanishad wants to convey, it's akshepa, and therefore Upanishad wants to convey that there is no bhokta. And therefore Vidyaranya says, Vachaha bhavati. Vachaha means this expression of this Brihadaranyaka mantra 4.4.12, which is under the discussion. Verse 193. Patijayadikam sarvam tattad bhogaya nechati kintvatma bhogarthamiti shruta udghoshitam bahu. Now Purvapakshi is raising a question. You say Atma is not a Bhokta. So, the Atma's Bhoktrutvam has been negated by Kasya Kamaya. Okay. It is said in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad very nicely. Yajnavalkya told that very beautiful. But elimination also, elimination of this, what you said, is there in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Yajnavalkya is admitting that Atma is Bhokta with dialogue to Maitreyi. And because the section, Maitreyi Brahmana occurs in the second chapter, 4th Brahmana, and 4th chapter, 5th Brahmana. Both Maitreyi Brahmana, and there is a little bit difference. In fact, both begin with a different types of mantra. And in the 4th chapter, 5th Brahmana, there are 2 mantras which are very useful. I have been added also. Anyway, so there in that dialogue, in the Maitreyi Brahmana, Yajnavalkya reveals Atma as a Bhokta. Atmanastu kamaya. Atmanahatu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Atmanahatu kamaya, atmanahatu bhogaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Everything in the creation is loved by the people for sake of one's own enjoyment, one's own comfort. Kamaha means bhoga, one's own comfort, one's own enjoyment. And then he gives a big list of bhoga, husband and then wife and then son and then wealth and then cattle and then brahmana and kshatriya and different lokas and devas, and so big list. And lastly he said, well, so atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Lastly, that's the thing. It starts with navare patyuk kamaya patipriyo bhavati. Atmanastu kamaya patipriyo bhavati. Navare jayai kamaya jaya priyo bhavati. Atmanastu kamaya jaya priya bhavati. Etc. etc. So whole list. So all, he gives a big list of bhoga. All different these objects of enjoyment are there for one's own sake, for one's own comfort, for one's own enjoyment. And therefore nobody loves in the creation for love of an object. I love a comfortable self for the sake of that self, for the sake of the comfort of oneself, for the sake of enjoyment of oneself, while you love others, etc. And so real love is directed towards this Atma, which is Bhokta. So for that only everything is loved. And therefore Yajnavalkya admits openly in the Maitreyi Brahmanam that Atma is a Bhokta. So then what is true? You said, well, Kasya Kamaya reveals Bhoktrutva Nisheda. Same again in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. 4th chapter, 4th Brahmana. 4.4.12, that is the mantra under discussion. And so he says here, Vidyaranya says, Pati Jayadikam Sarvam. Pati Jaya, Adi Padatha, all this Vittam, Pashu, Lokaha, Devaha, and everything. So Pati Jayadikam Sarvam, everything in the creation like husband, wife, etc., Putra, Vitta, etc. Tattat Bhogayana Ichchati. Nobody desires for their sake. So husband loves wife not for the comfort of wife. Husband loves wife for the comfort of oneself. So Atma Bhogartham, Vidyaranya says, it's for one's own comfort, one's own enjoyment. And therefore definitely there is a connection with the Bhoga. It may be husband, wife, everything. Well, there is a connection. So Atma becomes Bhokta. Very clearly Yajnavalkya says, Iti, this is a quotation, it ends here. And as I told you, well, this Maitreyi Brahmanam, for your sake, well, I will just tell you. You see, the Maitreyi Brahmanam which appears in the 4th chapter, that's the 5th Brahmana, where it begins with Ataha Yajnavalkyasya dve bharye babhuvatuhu Maitreyi cha Katyayini cha. So there in the 4th chapter, that Maitreyi Brahmana, well, begins with this, that Yajnavalkya has 2 wives, one is Maitreyi, another is a Katyayani, etc. Whereas in the 2nd chapter, 4th Brahmana, the Maitreyi Brahmana well begins with Maitreyi iti hovacha Yajnavalkya Udyasanva are ahamasmat sthanad asmi hantate anaya Katyayanya antam karvani. Well, one day Yajnavalkya called Maitreyi and told to her, his wife, told to her that I want to renounce now from this grasthashrama, etc. And before I leave, well, I want to take your permission, as well as I want to divide this wealth between you and Katyayani. So that is the beginning. In the 2nd chapter, 4th Brahmana, that Maitreyi Brahmana, and then 4th chapter, 5th Brahmana, well, begins with that Yajnavalkya has 2 wives, Maitreyi and Katyayani, etc., etc. And then many things are same. Only 2 more mantras are there in the 5th Brahmana, added there. Very beautiful mantras. But anyway, so here it says Shrutau. So Shrutau means in this Shruti, in this Brihadaranyaka Shruti, Udghoshitam loudly declares what? Atma is Bhokta has been clearly revealed in both the places. Either you see the 2nd chapter, 4th Brahmana, or 4th chapter, 5th Brahmana, both places this mantra is there. Navare patyukamaya patipriyo bhavati, navare jayaikam, etc. Reveals very clearly the bhoktrutvam of Atma. So Vidyaranya says bahudghoshitam means bahudghoshitam, well, means in many vakyas. So we can take a samanya vakya and we can take a vishesha vakya. Navare patyukamaya patipriyo bhavati, navare jayaikamaya jaya priyo bhavati, navare पुत्रः कामाय पुत्रः प्रियो भवति एक्सेट्रा, पुत्रस्य कामाय पुत्रः प्रियो भवति, आत्मनस्तु कामाय पुत्रः प्रियो भवति एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा. All these are विशेषवाक्यास्. And lastly सामान्यवाक्य नवारे सर्वस्य कामाय सर्वं प्रियो भवति, सर्वं प्रियं भवति, आत्मनस्तु कामाय सर्वं प्रियं भवति एक्सेट्रा. So bahu means in a many ways, means like this, by samanya vakyam or by vishesha vakyam, udghoshitam, shrutau udghoshitam. In this Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, well, this has been very loudly proclaimed that Atma is a Bhokta. And now answer is given in the next verse, in verse 194 by Vidyaranya. Kim kootasthaschidaabhasah अथवा किं वो भयात्मकः भोक्ता तत्र न कूटस्थः असंगत्वाद् भोक्तृतां व्रजेत्. भोक्ता तत्र न कूटस्थः असंगत्वाद् भोक्तृतां व्रजेत्. So Vidyaranya says, O Purvapakshi, don't use word Atma loosely. I am Bhokta or Atma is Bhokta, etc. When you say, well, you are taking I in a different sense. What is the meaning of I should ask first. And everyone ultimately is a mixture of a twofold Chaitanya. If you remember, we discussed in the 6th chapter, in the previous chapter, we discussed a twofold Chaitanya, Adhara Chaitanyam, Abhasa Chaitanyam. That is Vidyaranya's terminology. We know otherwise Bimba Chaitanyam, Pratibimba Chaitanyam. Sometimes we say Chit or Chidabhasa. So this is a mixture. So everyone, the very I, is a mixture. So just don't say I am Bhokta, because it's a mixture. And therefore you should very clearly point out what is from the mixture is Bhokta. That clarity should be there. If I is a very pure entity and you say Bhokta, then it's okay. But when it is a mixture and you still loosely use the word I and say Bhokta, it's not correct. And therefore, this mixture is integrally present in every individual. So if you ask who is Bhokta, which is talked in a Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, then there are three possibilities. That is, he is telling here. Kim kutasthaha, kim chidabhasaha, kim va ubhayatmakaha. Which one, Vidyaranya refers to when he says, Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati, Atmanastu bhogaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Then which Atma, which I is referred by Yajnavalkya, that we should know, being a mixture. So, it may be Adhara Chaitanyam which is Bhokta, it is Kutastha is Adhara Chaitanyam, we know now very clearly. We discussed it elaborately in chapter 6. So, Adhara Chaitanyam is a Bhokta, or Abhasa Chaitanyam is a Bhokta, or it's a mixture is a Bhokta. So, we have to be very clear about this. So, Vidyaranya here in the following verse, of course, he is going to arrive at that neither Adhara Chaitanyam is a Bhokta, neither Abhasa Chaitanyam is a Bhokta, but the mixture is a Bhokta. That's what he is going to reveal. Adhara Chaitanyam can't be Bhokta because it is Asanga Chaitanyam, Kutastha. So cannot be connected to anything. And therefore, it cannot be called Bhokta. It is easily ruled out. Chidabhasa, the Abhasa Chaitanyam, can have a connection. It's a Vyavarika thing, and it has a connection with the Antakaranam, and through Antakarana Vritti, it has a connection with the object also. Vritti will be definitely of the, Ghatakara Vritti, etc. So all through Vritti, of course, Chidabhasa, which is present in the Vritti, also will be connected to the sense object. So let us take Abhasa Chaitanyam as a Bhokta. Then, through the Vritti, it connects to the Bhokya Prapancha. And that is, you see in the Dakshinamurti Stotram also, Nana Chitra Ghatodara Sthitamaha Deepa Prabha Bhaswaram Jnanam Yasyatu Chakshuradi Karana Dvara Bahispandate. So Jnanam goes out. So what is Jnanam? Whether it is Jnana Sarupa Satyam Jnanam Brahma goes out, Or Jnanam stands for Chidabhasa, which goes out. Anyway, and therefore Chidabhasa goes out through every thought and pervades the vritti. We have seen even the twofold prakriya also by which the knowledge takes place. Vritti vyapti and phala vyapti, Chidabhasa pervades the object, etc. So first the vritti, pervades the the object, and thereby as though the ignorance of the cover on the object is removed. And well, but the object being jadam is to be illumined. Okay, then the Chidabhasa present in the vritti illumines the object, and that is how we get a knowledge of that object. So buddhitastha chidabhasau dvavetau vyapnutau ghatam. We have seen that in previous chapter. So buddhi tatstha chidabhasa. Buddhi means this vritti. Tatstha chidabhasa, which is and the chidabhasa which is present in there, definitely. Dvavetau vyapnutau ghatam. So ghatakar vritti, and then, well, of course, the chidabhasa present in the ghatakar vritti illumines the ghata, and thereby we have a ghata jnanam, etc. So, well, that is, we say the chidabhasa ultimately has a connection with the object, and therefore you said bhokta must have a connection with the bhogya prapancha. Then chidabhasa has a connection with the any bhogya prapancha, and then let us take chidabhasa as a bhokta. Vidyaranya says no. You can't talk about abhasa chaitanyam as a bhokta, because abhasa chaitanyam cannot exist by itself. Where is a question of connection? So chidabhasa itself cannot be the bhokta. Like Rajju Sarpa cannot do anything, right? Same way, cannot do anything by itself. Same way, kevala adhara chaitanyam bhokta na bhavati, because it is asanga, and abhasa chaitanyam api bhokta na bhavati, abhasatvat. Wherever the abhasa means the original is right present there, and therefore mixture is a bhokta. And therefore mithya chidabhasa, backed by this satya chaitanyam, etc., is bhokta. Mere abhasa chaitanyam. When you say only chidabhasa as though it exists on its own, then that chidabhasa becomes it doesn't become mithya, it becomes satyam. So anyway, whenever the chidabhasa, when we say it is mithya, definitely it is non-separate from the chaitanya, and therefore, well, definitely it's a mixture, is a bhokta. So bhoktrutvam is mithya. So Ajnavalkya talks about this Mishra Atma in Maitreyi Brahmanam. That we have to understand. So when we say Atmanastu Kamaya, Atmanastu Bhogaya Sarvam Priyam Bhavati, that Atma is this mixture of these twofold Chaitanyam, as we can say like that. So here, now let's go to this verse. First, Vidyaranya presents here three options and then negates the two. Kim kutastha bhokta bhavati, first, athava chidabhasah, that is pratibimba chaitanyam or chidabhasa, and kim kutastha bhokta bhavati athva chidabhasah bhokta bhavati, we have to apply this. It's a vikalpa method of discussion. So tatra kim va ubhayatmakah, and so ubhayatmakah, mixture. Ubhayatmakah bhokta bhavati, we have to supply this. Tatra, among these three options, kutastha bhoktrutam na vrajet. First option, kutastha cannot enjoy the bhokta status. Why? Asangatvat. He gives immediately the hetu. Bhokta tatra na kutastha asangatvat. So, because it is asanga, it cannot have any contact with the bhogya prapancha. In fact, where is bhogya prapancha? Not that bhogya prapancha is there and he doesn't have a connection. Where is bhogya prapancha from the standpoint of a consciousness? From the Bimba Chaitanya standpoint or from a standpoint of a Kutastha. Anyway, so that is not possible. Okay, verse 195. Sukha dukkha abhimanakhyah vikaro bhoga uchyate kutasthascha vikari chet ityetanna vyahatam katham. Now here Vidyaranya explains a reason, asangatvam, more. So asangatvam is a reason for not being a bhokta, for Atma. So then he explains that part further. See, any time of enjoyment, bhoga, is a modification or a change. Sukha dukkha abhimanakya, in the form of I am happy, or dukkha abhimanakya, well, in the pain of, or I am in pain, etc. So that is a vritti vikara. So there, this type of vikaras, the modifications in the mind, well, that is called sukha dukkha sakshatkara anyatra. In other places, bhoga has been defined. So it's like this: sukha dukkha sakshatkara, the experience, the direct experience. Sakshatkara means a direct experience here. A direct experience in the mind, in the form of sukham and dukkham. That's called bhoga. And therefore, that is definitely a vikara. There is a change. Different vrittis are there. We should understand all the modifications are not bhoga. I mean, the certain modification takes place in the body, etc. Gross body, right? Constantly modifications are going on. That's not bhoga. A particular thought modification, we say, we call it as a bhoga in terms of sukha, dukkha, etc. So, here it says sukha, dukkha, abhimanakya vikara, bhoga, uchyate. He is defining that way. So, and then definitely, kutasthasya vikari chet. So, kutastha means what? Kutavat tishtati. Nirvikarataya tishtati iti kutastha. And therefore, how come this nirvikara kutastha, if free from modification, that is which is atma, how can it is associated with this bhoga, which is vikara? So, association with vikara, etc. When you say vikari, means it has an association. Vikara asyasti. So, which has an association with the vikara is called vikari. Ahankara has a vikara. That's how ahankara is say, I am sukhi, I am dukhi, I am this, etc. Ahankara is a vikara, that's true. But atma, well, which is kutastha, which is free from any vikara. That is what the definition of kutastha is. Kutavat tishtati, nirvikarataya tishtati. Cannot have any vikara. And therefore that atma, well, definitely, which is a sangha, which is kutastha, cannot have any connection with the bhoga, and definitely it cannot be bhokta. So, vikari chet iti etad nak vyahatam katham. And if you kutastha, you will take it as a bhokta, then it becomes a vikari, and that will be katham na vyahatam. Is it not a contradictory? When you say kutastha and bhokta, well, definitely it's a contradictory terms. Bhokta means a vikari, and kutastha means which is nirvikari, and therefore it cannot go together. Katham is a akshepa again, so means negation. So katham na vyahatam, vyahatam is a contradiction. Katham na vyahatam, well, how can you say it is not a contradiction? It is definitely a contradiction. And one of the commentators say here, so instead of a sukha dukkha abhimanakya, sukhi dukkhi abhimanakya, that is better. Sukhi dukkhi abhimana is this, I am sukhi, etc. Well, that is just a sukhakar vritti, dukkhakar vritti that are going to happen. That's a part of order. Mental different feelings depending upon the situations will be there. So sukhakar vritti, dukkhakar vritti will be there. But then abhimana means I am sukhi, I am dukhi. That is the problem. That is the problem. So, and once you are dukhi, you cannot remove dukkham. Being dukhi, you cannot remove dukkham because that is because abhimana is there. So you have all. That is how Bhagavan defines in the 6th chapter. Tam vidya dukkha sanyoga viyoga. Dissociation from the association with the dukkham. The dukkham which occurs in the mind, pain, mental pain, etc. Well, and then association with that is there. So that's abhimana, that I am dukhi, etc. Dissociating yourself from that means definitely, well, I am the Atma which is free from this ahankara, who is calling dukhi, etc. Being dukhi, you cannot remove dukkha. So being ahankara, you cannot remove dukkha. Anyway, so this is here, sukhi dukkhi abhimanakya is a better reading actually. And then second option has been also shown, we'll see on Wednesday. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ। श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ।